The bottom is in, babe. The bottom is in. The bottom is in. Now, do I think the bottom is in? I do not. I am actually just quoting somebody who commented on my video a few hours ago, Kibar1997. The bottom is in, babe. We are moving to 150K fast. Now, okay, I do not believe that the bottom is in. I do not believe that we're going to 150K fast, but I actually want to present something in this video that I think it's a little bit of a shift in my mindset right now. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a spoiler alert here. If you have not sold your altcoins, I know my last video 2 days ago, I said that there's certain levels I'm going to be looking at to sell my altcoins. But if you haven't done so yet, not financial advice, my mindset right now is actually that maybe you shouldn't. And that you really shouldn't, because I think what comes next what comes over the next few months for Bitcoin and altcoins is a pretty decent relief rally that's going to play itself out. But I mean, if you look at my Bitcoin chart here, does that look like an exciting relief rally? I mean, it looks like something, right? And there is some pain ahead as far as where I think we're going to go. But altcoins are right now, at least the big ones, telling us a little bit different of a story. And so it might actually be worth it to hold your altcoins. And do I agree? Again, do I believe this? The bottom is in, we're moving to 150K fast. A local bottom, sure. 80K, we went down really hard, really fast. Yeah, you want to call that a local bottom? Absolutely. But that person is saying the bottom is in. No, I don't agree with that. But here's another thing that I'll say. So what I just said about altcoins, that's number one, point number one. Point number two is, all right, you guys know where I stand with 2026. I am absolutely convinced that the bears are going to get sidelined in a major way in 2026. And at the end of 2026, you're going to look back. A lot of you are going to look back and you're going to think, wait a second, that wasn't supposed to happen. Just like 2025, a lot of people are looking at 2025. Wait a second, that wasn't supposed to happen. This is a really simple thing for me to say. At the end of 2026, there's going to be a lot of confused people, just like there's a lot of confused people right now. And so, all right. This has not worked out the way that a lot of us hoped it wasn't going to work out. And so I hope that what you're hearing from me in this video and probably in future videos is actually some hope. Some hope that, yeah, you know what? Whatever this bear market looks like for Bitcoin, number one, it's not going to go as deep as other bear markets. Number two, it's not going to last as long as other bear markets. And number three, altcoins might actually hold up pretty well, which is also not what do I say? That's not a bold risk for me to take, given the fact that we never actually had a bull market for altcoins. It was just a prolonged bear market. So sure, but let's dive on into this. So first of all, we have Bitcoin here, and I've given my base case for like the highest floor that I think Bitcoin would hit, which would be around $74,000, $75,000. I do think we are going to go lower than that. And I definitely have my eyes set on the 200-week simple moving average. This is constantly rising. It's currently at $56,000. Maybe over the next few months, let's see where this was in October. Like October 1st, this was at $52,000. Here we are almost 2 months later. 2 months later, it'll be like over 56,000, 56.5 or something like that, December 1st. And then what does that mean? Beginning of 2026, that's 60,000 and probably a little higher than that as time goes on. I wouldn't be surprised if we had a bounce off of the 200-week moving average for Bitcoin. That would go down to $60,000 to $65,000 eventually in the first quarter. And the first quarter, people would, or maybe even into the second quarter, whatever, people would be like, oh, yeah, this is a normal bear market, just normal bear market. We're going to buy in November. Let's buy in October. Let's buy in November. And those people are going to get sidelined in a major way. So I have this projection of how that could play itself out. A rejection at the trend line, a lower low, so a higher a lower high put in first, and then a lower low, and then a break of the downtrend, and then a brief uptrend where we hit the 200-day, moving average. So it probably wouldn't be 100,000. So maybe upper 90s or so for Bitcoin, and then flush down to a bear market bottom, something like that. That's kind of a projection that I have here. But let me show you some altcoin charts, because the altcoin charts are looking a bit different. They're telling us a little bit different of a story. So there's some significance here to Bitcoin potentially getting up to this trend line and getting rejected there, and then maybe putting in a lower low. But look at some of these altcoins here. We have Ethereum. Now Ethereum, forgive the chart gore, I'm sorry about that, but you can see Ethereum's right up against resistance here at this trend line. It actually held, I wish I had noticed this, it held a perfect level from $2,700. That was major resistance earlier this year in May going into June, held that perfectly. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if Ethereum broke this trend line and then found some support on the trend line and started a nice mini uptrend for Ethereum. We have Binance, BNB, which has already kind of broken that trend line. I wouldn't mind buying some spot by BNB right now, or actually not right now, because we'll see about Bitcoin here. We have Solana. Solana's right up against resistance. And another thing that, it held a key level. This has been a no-brainer for me over the years with Solana, with opening a long on Solana. I opened a long on Solana at $126. That has just held, except for one time. That was the April bottom. But I mean, look at how long this level of support has held for Solana. I mean, it's been since early 2024. So again, it held, and it may be that Solana breaks this downtrend and shows some strength here over the next few weeks. We have XRP right up against resistance. So I know, yeah, all right, all these are all majors. I'm not really too excited about touching those small cap altcoins that are going to blow your mind, going to make all your wildest dreams, going to do your 100x's. It's not happening, not anytime soon, but sooner probably than you think, but not anytime soon. So what does it look like if Bitcoin does get up to this resistance here? That's $95,000 and then gets rejected there. That means a lot of these cryptos, I know Binance has already done it, but a lot of these cryptos are going to break down trends. And there's another one I forgot to put on here. Let me show you Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash actually looks really strong. And Bitcoin Cash is one of four cryptocurrencies that outperformed Bitcoin last bear market. In other words, Bitcoin went down, 75%? I don't remember the exact percent. Bitcoin Cash went down less. And Bitcoin Cash did very well throughout this bull market, even though it wasn't really a bull market for altcoins. For Bitcoin Cash, it was. And Bitcoin Cash is actually looking really strong right now. So we're seeing some strength in altcoins on this downtrend with Bitcoin. Bitcoin potentially rallying to a lower high. I think we're going to see a lot of these altcoins, my goodness, a lot of these altcoins show some just from a solo perspective with the altcoins, show some strength, some kind of signal that it's actually worth buying these altcoins for a play. And even if you just think about, let's say that this is how it plays itself out with Bitcoin, it puts in that around, it could go over $100,000 and maybe like mid 90s or upper 90s sometime in March. It could happen sooner than that, and then flushes down to its bear market bottom in April or May, and then that's it. A lot of these altcoins on that move up to wherever Bitcoin does hit and get rejected, the 200 moving average, a lot of these altcoins can actually do pretty well. And I think every one that I've just shown you is going to outperform Bitcoin after whatever this first bottom is. So again, let's say that's $74,000. I don't think that's the bottom. I think that's the first bottom. But I wouldn't be surprised. I made a case in my last video for potentially that something like that would be the bottom in the bears, or at least, the 4-year cycle bros who are now of a mindset, okay, you know what? It's over. See you at the end of 2026. They're going to be scratching their heads, and they're going to you know, man, they're not going to believe in any kind of rally if that happened to be the bottom. If $80,000 is the bottom, they're going to be like, oh no, we're going so much lower. And yeah, yikes. They're going to get sidelined in a major way. There was a comment on my most recent video, max pain. I think that max pain is to the upside. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if, is max pain to the upside yet? I think max pain will be to the upside at some point. So I hope that what you're hearing from me is some level of hopefulness in this video, at least for sometime soon-ish. Again, I think we're going to put in one more low, and then Bitcoin's going to rally from there. Something like, what's that, 30, 40%. And altcoins are going to outperform Bitcoin. I mean, look at Bitcoin dominance right now. Bitcoin dominance is looking very favorable. And we know in a few days that quantitative tightening is coming to an end. I wouldn't be surprised at all if on this rally to this lower high, if that's how it plays itself out, if altcoins, if we just saw Bitcoin dominance continue to flush down and put in some new lows, go below whatever that bottom was, 57%, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I actually would expect that to happen, which is why I'm saying, this is a different tune than what I've taken in my previous videos. Again, if you haven't sold yet, maybe now is a good, now I think you should just hold on to your altcoins. That is a different perspective. Amir, I hope you're watching this video. That is a different perspective than my last video. Now, I'm kind of hoping that this is how it plays itself out. I'm sorry. I hope that we see Bitcoin get to $74,000, $75,000. Under $80,000, I'm going to be loading up on some altcoins. And if so, then fantastic. Then I'm going to ride that for some gains, some gains over the next few months. So if not, I might have missed out. If $80,000 was the bottom, it might be too late. Aside from, Bitcoin Cash, a lot of these are structurally sound right now. Binance, BNB, we're still, if I were to buy today, I think there would be some short-term pain, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be some gains here. Now, some other things that are really, really sticking out to me. Let me show you the Russell 2000. What's going on? I'm really surprised by this. I mean, within 4 days, the Russell 2000 has made up its losses, almost all of its losses. Now, you can see I drew a fib chart here, and let me zoom in on this fib. We have, the day's closed. So on this particular fib, the Russell 2000 has closed above the 786, which means that an all-time high, a new high is likely. Closing above the 786 from swing high to swing low. I didn't draw this perfectly. Let me just see here. Yeah. Well, let me get it more perfect. Oh man! All right, let's see what happens tomorrow. Or if you're stock market's closed on Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving for those in the United States. If you're not in the United States, stock market is closed. This is above. It's above. It's above the fib. So it's looking likely that whatever that was, that pain, that the Russell 2000 at least is ready to make a move up to new all-time highs. What about the NASDAQ and the S&P? It's a little bit, we're still kind of at resistance for both of those. NASDAQ, well, all right, so if I were to draw a fib, it would tell you one thing, but if I were to draw a trend line, you'd see something entirely different, and you can draw that trend line. Okay, let me see a fib here real quick. And that's a very crude fib. So yeah, it still hasn't gone through the golden pocket, but has broken a downtrend, at least a downtrend line. S&P 500, same deal. It's very similar to the NASDAQ. You draw a trend line and, oh, you know what? Still at resistance. You do a fib and we'll see what happens here. And bada bing, bada boom. Not above the golden pocket, not at the 786. And I have some huge alpha that I want to show you in this video still, all from one account on X that if you're not following him, you really should follow. Dow Jones is just, it's its own thing. I can't really draw trend lines or anything on that. So again, all right, everything but Bitcoin, that's kind of the thesis for this video. Everything but except for Bitcoin is showing us some level of strength here. Kind of interesting to me. So a couple things on X, and this may seem contradictory to what I'm saying, but it kind of enforces my mindset that the bottom is not yet in. It might be, but it's not yet. So from Brett here, 3 different posts from Brett_ETH on X. This guy has been phenomenal this entire run. So you've got to pay attention to Brett. Okay, he's been one of the best, and he has only 24,000 followers on X. Bitcoin's fear and greed level is at 15, extreme fear. Historically, these show us 2 things. 1, these can lead to short-term relief rallies. This lines up with the post below on why I said Bitcoin and MSTR will be seeing a bounce. I'm going to show you that post. 2, these appear more during a downtrend versus on the way to a new all-time high. There are a few exceptions, all right? There are definitely a few exceptions, and let's look at those exceptions. I've compared this current market to 2019. 2019, actually, this doesn't line up perfectly with what I was thinking. Where are we? Oh, you know what? It's weird. This chart's kind of ugly. Okay. In 2019, after the big move up to back up to $14,000, that flushed out, and then Bitcoin, you can see the fear and greed at 15 here when Bitcoin was around $8,000, but it had ended up holding it. It lost the 50-week moving average on a few weekly candles, on 7 weekly candles, but then pumped up, and then we had the Black Swan COVID crash, which let's just not count the Black Swan. If that didn't happen, we would have just held the 50-week after that, and so maybe this time is similar. We'll have a few weekly closes below the 50-week moving average, but then we'll be fine. So that's an exception. We have also that mini bear market in 2021 in between the peaks. Maybe this is a similar time, but otherwise you can see Bitcoin at extreme fear throughout 2018, majorly in a major way in 2018, in a major way in 2022. And then, a few times, actually, all right, here we go. August 5th bottom. And I'm surprised it didn't get there in April of 2025, but here we are again. So this is usually on a downtrend. And so here we are, end of 2025, 4-year cycle bros are crying their tears. We didn't have the bull run. And maybe they'll turn that into a self-fulfilling prophecy for a short time, a much shorter period of time than they're thinking. All right. So number 2, is this the MicroStrategy one? Let me show you the MicroStrategy one. Will MicroStrategy do a repeat of this bounce from last cycle to test the 50-week? So who cares about MicroStrategy? I actually do care about MicroStrategy. I'm in some shorts on MSTY, which is a high yield dividend investing asset. It loses its price every month because of how high the dividends are. It's ridiculous. So I'm in some puts on that, doing pretty well on that. So this is kind of not music to my ears. But look at 2021. MicroStrategy bounced 70%. Wow. All right, MicroStrategy bounced 70% from that first bottom. You could see in early 2022, it bounced 70% and got up to, I'm assuming, the 200-day moving average and got rejected there and then flushed out and then hit its bear market bottom and hung around there. And you could have bought MicroStrategy at $13 in the bear market and sold it for $520. FYI, I'm going to be buying a lot of MicroStrategy. So we have that. We have the potential of a 70% rally. Why does that matter? It matters because MicroStrategy tends to front run Bitcoin. You can see here at the first peak here, the previous all-time high for MSTR was $130 per share. And when did it peak? It peaked in early 2021. And then it put in a lower high later in the year. And then what happened with MicroStrategy this time around? It peaked in late 2024 when Bitcoin got up to $108,000 and then put in a lower high and then barely didn't even come close to when Bitcoin got to 126 in October. So MicroStrategy is kind of the canary in the coal mine when it comes to, and this is something Brett's been talking about, and I kind of just brush it off like, no, this time's different, but it wasn't different so far for Bitcoin. So we have a potentially a 70% move ahead of us for MicroStrategy to the upside. And if that's the case, that doesn't mean a 70% move for Bitcoin. It means probably a lesser move for Bitcoin. It could be coming soon. And again, Bitcoin dominance is going down, and altcoins are looking pretty good for a play right now. So there's that. Another thing that kind of supports my thesis that we will go lower than $80,000 and that the bottom is not actually in. Bitcoin has never made a new all-time high after closing below the 50-week without touching the 200-week moving average first. All right, that's what's happened every time. Could this time be different? It could be different. But the 200-week moving average isn't all that much lower than where we've gotten. It's another 25% move down from that $80,000 bottom level. I wouldn't be. It's just, from my experience trading, like with Solana, 126 being a key level, as we were dumping, I was just like, you know what? We're going down to 126. That's where people are going to buy. And so I just don't. I think the bears are going to, after this relief rally that we eventually have, I think the bears are just going to be in control until we get to a very clear, this is the level we're going to buy. And then we'll be back in control. And so in 2022, that 200-week moving average, we spent several months, several weekly closes below, and that was the first time ever. In previous bear markets, if you saw it get down to the 200-week moving average, that was an instant buy. You buy at the 200-week moving average. And even in the previous bear market, you got down to the 200-week moving average. That was still a good time to buy, but we did spend several weeks and a few months below for the first time ever. We had a monthly close below the 200-week moving average. What I am contending right now is that this time around, especially with my thesis that we're going to bottom out in the second quarter, that we're going to have a similar to the previous bear market where we just touched the 200-week. Unless, I always have to throw this caveat out, unless we have a great financial crisis or dot-com bust, then Bitcoin is going much lower. Okay, so just a touch, just a kiss of the 200-week moving average, and then I am going to be very eagerly buying Bitcoin. And who knows what even we're going to do with altcoins, because they might just be holding up just fine this entire time. So 200-week, like I said, January 1st of 2026, that's probably going to be around $60,000. If we bottom out in April or May, we're talking about maybe $65,000, maybe $68,000 for Bitcoin. I can live with that. I can live with that given where we are right now. Okay? So we'll see, guys, but I hope that your takeaway from this video is that I'm not going to say the worst is not behind us, but if we were to just zoom in for the next 3 months, I think the worst is pretty close to being behind us. I mean, aside from maybe one more flush out with Bitcoin, but most of you don't own Bitcoin, right? That's kind of, I'm being a little facetious when I say that. Your altcoins might be okay for the next few months here, at least. So we'll see. But anyway, I've gone a little long this video. I'm going to stop it here. That is all I have for today. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful rest of your week, and I will most certainly be seeing you in another video. Peace!